right.
As my friend says, solution solved. Well, hopefully.
Oh, I like that. I'm refreshing my notifications.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It be live. Now, hopefully, we won't have problems with the weirdnesses. I I I heard myself. Yeah, it looks like that's working.
And no robots?
Yeah, no robots. I'm
Sweet.
watching it.
Alright.
Yeah, no roboticness either, I don't think. So that seems to be working. That is unbelievably nice that we can have it work.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Alright. I'm just gonna link it.
All right. So that
So that
seems.
we put it in all the right places. Watch me screw that up.
Let's see if my Twitterverse works too. No more roboticness, right? I think it's good. I'm asking the audience.
Alright.
Hopefully,
Alright.
it
Well,
is
we
the
can.
case. But anyway, we can actually start now. Amazing.
It only took like an hour.
Yeah, that's
All right,
funny.
that's the show, guys. That's it. Nice
That's the
seeing
whole
everybody
thing.
in
It's
here.
us struggling.
Yeah. Um, so,
Oh,
anyways,
yeah. Go
should we
ahead.
get going? Should we get started, or should we wait until more people show up?
Nah, we can start. Actually, I'm going to answer this guy's question really quickly.
Sure.
He's like, I hope you don't give up on the reviews. Yeah, I'm not giving up on the reviews. Um, I hope I made it somewhat clear in the last video, although it was like doom and gloom or whatever. But I said that I don't think I could ever quit doing this. It's just probably going to have to change the format. That's all.
Did I
People,
hear correctly that there was some kind of potential for you to return, like in the spring, like mid
yeah,
March,
I've
April
been
ish?
responding to comments saying March. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, that gives me time for Can Jam and then like time to. I'm going to Can Jam
Yeah,
in New York. I think Resolve is too.
I am. I think
That's pretty good.
expecting to.
So who knows? I want some time to digest the stuff and maybe hopefully get some things in and then I'll start back up again. But anyway, this is Resolve's show.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm just sort of winging it because it turns out I've never actually talked to Metal571 via voice or any other communication other than random tweets and Discord memes. So
Yeah,
this
pretty
is
much.
a new thing for me. But I mean, for the people who are here, if you guys didn't know already, maybe I think probably a lot of people already do, but Metal571 is kind of like the inspiration for a lot of, well, me, but then I imagine also a lot of other YouTube reviewers, because I've always had this. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who's like this, but like whenever I'm interested in something, I get the feeling that there's like, if you want to learn about something and research it, you can find the thing that shows up the most prominently in whatever media sphere you're in, whether it's Twitter or social media or Google. And those are usually articles like The Verge or big publications that are giving you kind of I want to say like boilerplate or yeah, they're giving you a certain amount of information, but it's not necessarily tailored to the audience that's gonna care about the details, or the audience who, if they get something or whatever it is, they're going to be bothered and nitpick it by, or yeah, they'll be bothered by tiny little things and nitpick everything. And I feel like pushing through that for anything and lifting kind of the veil on that inevitably leads to real information from people like Metal571. Uh, and that's in this case it happens to be just on YouTube. But I've always looked for that kind of information for the people who are again, it's like I would be annoyed if I didn't know about something, if I only watched, okay, I'm saying MKBHD here, even though I respect and like his stuff. But so, for example, the Sennheiser HD820, if I only watched MKBHD's video on that, I wouldn't actually get to know anything about how it sounds. And then, like, I saw another one recently where somebody was reviewing the AirPods Pro, and like or just even on YouTube, you can search AirPods Pro audiophile review, and you'll get like 20 results. And I bet you, like, most of them don't really talk about how they sound. So, being able to talk, or being able to get information about how something sounds beyond just that basic kind of like 2 minutes spent on, it sounds good, I like it, to get actual information about how stuff sound. That's what Metal 571 has been for me, and I think for a lot of other people as well. But actually, I mean, we should probably just launch in, because I do have some things that I've been wanting to ask you, that are kind of going beyond that a little bit. And the first kind of like question I've had for you is like, what? I mean, you're like say you're just starting your YouTube channel, and you're like in your 20 somethings, and you have like you could, the world is your oyster, let's say, the world of technology is your oyster, and you're into all kinds of other stuff. Like, I saw a mouse review, I think a webcam review, and I know you're into cars, I know you're into speakers.
Yeah.
So why headphones? Why is that why was that the thing that you gravitated towards instead of anything else?
That's funny because I think I've told this story before, at least either in one of my live shows or I've typed it out somewhere. But like, I mean, I've always been interested in headphones and audio since I was like a little kid. I usually tell the story of like, dude, I've been using equalizers first on sound cards, obviously, because I was a hardcore gamer for years and years. When I was like, before I was even like a teenager. So, I mean, I was always interested in good quality audio. But the thing is that I hadn't like been reminded, or also I come from a pretty frugal family, so like they would basically say, "Hey, oh, you already have a headphone. Why do you need another headphone?" And like it's ridiculously funny to think about that now, but obviously, but yeah, I've always been into it, but nobody kind of like reminded me until when I went to grad school. That was like 2012, 2013, and there was an M50 on one of my lab mates' desks, and I tried it, and I was like, no, 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 now I have to do this. And then I started, it started going crazy. Oh, apparently I'm slightly loud.
Oh,
Sorry.
I can fix that.
Oh,
Probably left you at plus
did you
20.
turn me up in the, oh boy.
Okay,
Oh
there we
no.
go.
Sorry about that. Blowing people's
Start a
ears
show.
out. But anyway, yeah, so that's why I got into it. I mean, I was always into it, but the problem is it's just like I didn't decide to shift my focus on it until, that happened. And I also was very careful to spend like a good amount of time before I even started reviewing. I feel like I spent like at least a year or something like that, just, buying up like headphones that are not too expensive, maybe like 100, $150 range, just to get an idea of like how all these things sounded. And yeah, I pretty much came to the same conclusion you did. It's like, where's the sound description? Because I'm like hearing these things that are pretty clearly different in these ranges, and nobody seems to be talking about it. And then of course I found Interfidelity, and I was like, wait, you can find out how a headphone sounds kind of before you buy it. That like blew my mind away, and that's why like measurements have always been such a central part of what I do too. But obviously they're not everything. But anyway, that's a whole other subject. But
But so
that's where that went.
before you were looking at frequency response graphs, you were already EQing your headphones by ear, like
Oh
basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like I made the joke. It doesn't matter where I was. I was like, oh yeah, I'll come in and I'll adjust your bass and mids and treble controls in your car and your stereo and your sound
Right.
card and like all this stuff. I don't know. Obviously, my taste has changed slightly, but that's also a whole other topic from those days to now. Not that
Right.
much though. It kind of went one way and then it went back. Yeah, it's kind of
So,
funny.
I mean, in a way, then it was born out of necessity because nobody was actually doing this, but
Yeah,
also because you were mad that there were headphones that sucked.
yeah, I know. It's
And
like
yeah,
I obviously didn't have a. It took a long time to get a good ear. I mean, it takes anybody a good time to get
yeah,
a good ear to judge what's good or bad for a certain price range. That's actually funny because that's kind of why I don't do IM reviews yet because I think I'm starting to build a small collection of to figure out what is good for what price because that's really
Yeah,
difficult. And I mean,
and those are all
everybody
over the
starting out
place.
has that problem. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but you're also a musician, right? Like you, I mean, you play guitar.
it's funny because even though yeah I do play guitar as only a hobbyist. Like I actually have never taken a guitar lesson. I was just self-taught. I was just really interested in it. I don't know. Somebody brought when I was younger, someone brought in a guitar to an event I was at, and I was like, oh, that's a thing. And then I played it, and I was like, oh, that's more of a thing. I need this now too. It's like just that thing you discover you're interested in, but you didn't really realize. But yeah, I wouldn't really. It's funny. I wouldn't really call myself a musician as much as just a hobbyist, but it's a fun hobby. But yeah, like I've always had an idea of what I think the music is supposed to sound like. So obviously everyone has that idea in their head, but
Well,
yeah, I
I'm
don't know. I was
amazed
just
by
sensitive
that.
to it. So
I think, I mean, I wonder if that's an explanation for, because growing up around instruments, I find that's one of the things that I always try and listen for is how close does it get to the thing that I know that it's supposed to sound like.
right, yeah,
So if you've
definitely.
heard those instruments, it goes a long way to kind of giving a. But again, that's also affected by the room that you're in, and even just the instruments themselves, and how far away you are, and everything else. So um,
Of
it's not
course,
always
yep.
easy to get that. But okay, so I mean, it sounds like there was kind of like this, uh, like because you were detail oriented and couldn't find anybody providing the information that you were looking for, you jumped into doing it in headphones, and then like that was just what sort of took off. I mean, people obviously it was a gap that needed to be filled.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I realized with YouTube. Like my
Yeah,
hilarious, ridiculously overly viewed one webcam review is what got me this like this ridiculous YouTube partnership
yeah,
to start with. And it was really just because and the reason why that happened was because there was nothing. I went to Google. I mean, this was like man, what was it like 2010, 2011, something like that, I think. And nobody had a review saying, "Oh, here's what the manual settings do, and here's how it looks when I change it to this." And like this crappy short review, just doing that, got there's like 100,000 views or something stupid now. And so, yeah, that. But getting back, the point I want to make is exactly what you said. Like, if you want to do something on YouTube, at least at that time, it was easier to pick a niche that nobody had
right.
carved out yet. And if you get that video out that nobody has that people are looking for, and then people will come and look at it. So I don't really think of myself as some. I still don't think of myself as some big influencer, some big YouTuber, because I'm like too focused on looking at my sub count and being like, oh yeah, I'm not that big or whatever. But I forget that a lot of people are probably just Googling and finding videos from, hey, I want a review on this thing. Doesn't mean they want to watch reviews all day. I feel like that's kind of a weird person to want to watch reviews all day. So
There's that's definitely true, but I mean, there's also like there's an element of, I guess, I mean, for me at least, it there's an element of worry when I see something that's a YouTube like a specific YouTube review, when I know that it's constructed in a way that's not necessarily meant to uh, provide the most information. So, for example, if I see it's again, I'm cracking down on MKBHD here, but like it's for a specific audience, right? I mean that stuff.
yeah,
It's there is information there, but it's for an audience that I feel like the person who's potentially going to purchase the thing, if you would want to know more, and especially for things, say you only have $200 to spend on a pair of headphones or something like that, and you want to know, okay, like how far does this $200 get me? You want to know as much as you can about the thing before you buy it, and yeah, and it definitely feels like for me at least, I'm always a little bit wary of yeah, the stuff that feels a little bit overproduced or meant to be too slick, because then the focus isn't
yeah.
necessarily on the whatever it is that we're talking about. It focuses on making it look nice and getting subscribers and getting people to donate to whatever, or getting people to buy the Amazon link or whatever, right?
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, it's a different lens, both literally and
yeah.
figuratively. Like, and the
Yeah,
tech review sites are looking at these things as what features do they have and what is cool about them tech wise.
Yeah.
And a reasonably priced headphone that sounds good to most people is going to get a good review. So,
Yeah, yeah. As long as it,
but
makes sound in a
yeah,
reasonable way, the other things are the features are what people are focusing on. But I don't want to get hung up on
yeah,
that stuff because I actually
right,
had other questions for you as well.
yeah, yeah.
For anybody who, I guess we now have a couple people in here, so that's
Yeah, yeah, like
moving
30,
along.
30 something people watching. It's pretty good.
So for anybody who doesn't know, and probably most people do again, Metal571 has decided to take a step back. Let's say not a retirement. He's not crying at 100 million
Yeah, it's really
or
just a
10 million
break.
subs.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Um, yeah, just taking a break. But I wanted to ask you, like, why was there any? I kind of have a sense of why you want to take a break. I mean, it was pretty clear from that video. But was there any one thing that kind of set it off for you?
I mean, a lot of people are gonna say it's the LCD One review, and that's not completely wrong.
That's
Um,
this headphone.
yeah, this happens to be the one you're wearing. I
Hmm.
think the reason why was because I don't know, some people were mad, and it looked shady because I had gotten the headphone in advance. Because they wanted to see what I thought,
Hmm.
under embargo to see if it was any good. Like I generally am gonna just completely dismiss things now that I don't think are worth buying. So obviously the fact that I kept that and did the review very quickly, and it was actually kind of nice for me to be able to get my opinion out there really quickly so that people would know it's not a terrible product that they should avoid just and it's brand new.
Yeah.
Obviously, that worked well for the product. I mean, it's not perfect, and obviously, I discovered that later when I finally heard the Sundar at home, as you know. But
Hmm.
anyway, that's kind of like telling the story of that review rather than why I stepped back. But a lot of it is because I do have a full-time job, and I go there, and then I come home, and when I come home, the last thing I want to do is go and do more work. As soon as like YouTube started to feel like it was more work and not fun anymore, and that was definitely the exact opposite of what I intended. So that's why I needed to take at least a break of some kind. Yeah, I'm not I'm a fairly lazy person when doing these reviews and stuff, and it was really funny. One of the last ones I shot, I think it was at 361. I think I did like 21 takes on it in a row because somewhere I randomly coughed in the video and I'm like, crap, now I have to start this over again. I have some of those problems as well. Not total perfectionism, but like, oh my God, it's just boring sitting alone and trying to shoot a review of that. So, like, that's why, anyway, getting back to so that's why I took the break. But I think that when I come back, what I want to do is more of this kind of stuff. I think people really like live shows now. That might be I don't know if I mean, that's kind of always been the case. Like, Twitch has kind of proved that, obviously, as you know. People
Yeah.
like to interact with the audience and stuff. But
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of this hobby is just people I mean, most of it is just people wanting to know what to buy. And so naturally, that's questions. So being able to answer questions live seems like the niche that I'm going to move into, but not completely. I think I'm going to feature a headphone at the beginning of the live show, being like, here's what I've heard recently, here's what I think, but short, and then take questions on that product and whatever other questions, something like that.
So
I think that's what I'm going to move towards because
means
that's easier.
you're gonna have to be live like the entirety of every weekend. As soon as you wake up, you just
Yeah,
flip on
right, exactly.
the. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the schedule for that's going to be yet either, but that's actually infinitely easier for me than even just doing the regular reviews.
Yeah.
It's just it's a lot of work to I people don't know. I think Darko actually said this. What was it, today or yesterday or something? He released a video about like what do my reviews mean, which actually wasn't that bad. It's good to clarify like what you're doing. And he mentioned in there like people have no idea how much work goes behind this. And like for me, that's a lot of listening and a lot of swapping A
Hmm.
B A B A B. Like most of the time, I'm really tempted to just stop and just listen to music and have fun. But like I have to force myself into like, here's the same test tracks I've heard thousands of times. Let's go play them again. Yay, fun.
Yeah, I've definitely run into
So,
that. But with that, I mean, there you brought up something. The most people when they're watching any reviews of this kind of stuff, they they're watching it as you said for to potentially purchase something, right? Because they have something already in mind and they want to know if it's any good, so they type it into whatever, and then they get a result, and it's
yeah.
you talking about the headphone. But there are also, I feel like there are people with that I'm meeting now within, I mean, it's within the headphone community and just in general in this hobby, who and in Discord and whatever else, who they are not, you know, it would be so nice to be that person who can just buy a headphone and then take it home, or you know, and be happy with it and listen to your music and then whatever. But
Yeah.
because like once you're, you know, at a certain point in it, it feels like there's, it just keeps getting, you know, you want to hear more and different things, and you just want to keep going down the rabbit hole. And I'm starting to meet more people who are like that, who are like me. And so I wonder if, I mean, just thinking of I like the idea of having reviews be, I mean, that's the whole point, is to make it helpful for somebody who's going to buy it. But I think there's also a segment, and hopefully, maybe I'm wrong about this, but hopefully it's growing, where, you know, it's people who just want to know what we think of things, and want to know, even if they're not interested in buying it. It's like I noticed this with like the Empyrean, or even the head audio headphone,
Yeah.
where it's not about I'm going to potentially go out and buy this thing. It's about I just want to know what you think. What is the hierarchy of flagship headphones, for example, or what is the best DAC or amp for the whatever price range. And so and that's cool. I mean, I think it's interesting, and it's kind of cool, because then I feel like these are the types of people who I'm more likely to encounter if I go to a meet or some sort of show or an event. And then it just becomes, you know, talking about headphones, and then we go into super nerddom. But
Very quickly, yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, that's not really a segue into anything. That's just something I keep noticing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I like being more of a guide, and I think that eventually some of the reviewers more than others, and whatever, you know, whoever's ears seem to align more with whatever your experience has been, you'll pick a reviewer and be like, oh, okay, here's my guide for, you know, if I
Yeah.
want to buy something new about the new products coming out. I like looking at it in that light a little bit better. It's like, oh, this person said this, and oh, this person said this, and if you kind of get the idea of what those people like, then you can make a really good potential decision.
Speaking of which, review process. That was the thing on my list. So
Oh man,
I'm aware
yeah.
of your review process, but actually I wanted to bring up something that has been I mean, I think your review process is also one of the things that I've gravitated towards for myself, but
Hmm.
and I've tried out some of because you basically use the notch filter on a sweep, right? To check for peaks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'll do if I think there's a peak. And sometimes before that, that'll either come from just music listening, or if I'm not sure, then I'll sweep a sine wave on while the headphones on
Yeah.
my head and try to find, you know, where it's loudest and dips. Yeah.
What I've noticed, I mean, it's a lot of it does come with experience too, though, because I mean, as you're just saying, if you just put it on your head and you, like, I'm starting to get to the point now where I can immediately recognize a 5k hertz peak, like right away, where it's
Right.
like, okay,
Yeah.
that's a 5k hertz peak, and then I look at the measurement and sure enough, there it is. Whereas like even like maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago, definitely I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have been like, it just sounds weird somewhere, I don't know
Right.
where it is.
Yeah.
And so it is I mean, there is an element of the more you do this kind of stuff, the better you get at being able to identify those things. But I wanted to ask you about something. I mean, I've come across this was like a while ago. I was doing a bit of reading about this when I first heard about your method for like with the notch, and I was looking into actually when people when they lose their hearing a little bit, or just as people age, losing your hearing the way that we do, and where we lose hearing first, or the way that we lose hearing. And you know, I always thought, okay, you always lose the upper frequencies, and then it kind of just gradually it goes down, right? You eventually just can't hear, like, well, for me it was like, okay, 18k hertz, then can't quite hear 17.5, then 17k hertz, then
Yeah.
it goes
Right.
down. But I've started reading up. I should just send you a link to some of this stuff. But I was reading up about, you know, if you're listening to music, certain types of music with headphones that have certain, not just headphones, but any speakers, or say you work in a factory where they're hitting something that specifically resonates at,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
6k hertz or something, I don't know, whatever it is. There's a chance that it can impact your hearing, or a person's hearing there, not necessarily in a linear fashion with the rest of the where your hearing would normally be. Um, and it made me self-conscious when I was trying the notch thing, because I started thinking, well, maybe like I hear this was actually when I was doing sound editing for some documentary stuff, but I was second guessing myself because I was thinking maybe what I'm hearing here is a recession or whatever it is, but maybe I've just been listening to Burzum for too long.
It's just a dead spot or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then so where the hearing roll off is, let's imagine our hearing is a flat line, which is not obviously, but imagine that, it's compensated to whatever our ears actually are.
Yeah.
And imagine it rolls off at the highs, but then at certain points, if for whatever reason we've been, sitting next to an airplane for too long, maybe maybe a certain
Yeah.
different part of the frequency range is going to dip down a little bit, and then it makes it more difficult to recognize immediately that 5k hertz peak or whatever that might be. Whereas other people who don't have their hearing as impacted the same way as they age may not have that issue, and then that kind of, I don't know, maybe that's another one of these things that accounts for why people hear things differently. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, apparently that's definitely a thing. And as far as I know, I don't have that problem. But it's definitely makes impressions kind of interesting because there are quite a few people who have specific loss ranges like that. So it's something that obviously we can't, and as far as I know, we can't really fix, and we can't really accommodate that for everybody. But
Well, that's where the
that yeah
frequency
that
response graphs are. Yeah, helpful.
yeah that's definitely a thing. But yeah, that's real. I've read about that before. I mean, my hearing rolls off on the top also, like, but that's like above 10K.
Yeah,
But I don't think there's anything else
yeah,
really wrong there because I mean, obviously I've been through like I don't know 100 headphones or something, and if there was a dead spot, I would be dead on a lot of them. But
yeah.
yeah, no, that's definitely something to take into consideration that people probably don't normally know about unless they've already been to an audiologist, and usually they can identify something like that.
Hmm. But I mean, in some ways, that also explains it. If I say, oh, I love this headphone, someone else is like, I hate it because of whatever. It's like
Yeah,
one of
right.
us is potentially, has an issue there. But I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's why we need more precise measurement rigs to give
Yeah,
us
I,
at least something.
I wonder because if you think about it, each rig and pinna has its own compensation. So,
Yeah,
and your brain is supposed to compensate for whatever the shape of your ear is. So supposedly, in the end, I think we should all come out somewhere around the same because of that, but I don't
well, and
know
we're
that for
used to,
sure.
because that's also what we're used to hearing.
Right, because like our brain is
Yeah,
compensating for whatever the kind of shape is that we have. I mean, unless the
yeah,
headphone is like pushing up against your ear and bending it some
yeah,
way and
yeah,
messing it
yeah.
up. I mean, obviously that's going to be a problem, but I don't know if I feel like it's more down to the music people listen to and
I
just their
tend to
personal
agree.
preference than I used to think that maybe everybody hears completely different.
Hmm.
And I've talked with Jude about this actually last year at Can Jam, and he said that he and his colleagues swept a sine wave, and they both heard a different dip or peak at like 15K or 16K on an HD 650 or something like that. Apparently, there is a peak way out there. I can't hear quite out that far, but yeah, it's so I don't know. Although the other problem is if you start talking about dips way up in the range, way up top,
Yeah.
that's another problem because that's where, measurements vary the most. And so obviously positioning on your head varies the most. So I don't even know if that can explain why people perceive things differently. I think it's more of a matter of taste. Like people I find who like more forward upper mids, or actually I should say normal upper mids, compared to me, are probably not listening to things like metal where there's a lot of electric
Yeah.
guitar always
Yeah.
pummeling
Yeah.
you in the face. But if you want your vocals to be forward on purpose, then a lot of headphones like an LC2 is going to sound like completely dead. So it's depends. The only thing you can do and we can do, and this is my approach, is have a set reference, explain the reference, and then compare everything to that reference. And then people will know that if you think something's a little bit forward, but people who like the HD 650 or the 600 will like this thing, then I think that's more helpful. So
Yeah. I oops, getting. I wanted to show bring this up here. I'm going to see if I can put it on the display. Is this showing up for people? Maybe not. It's
Yeah,
supposed
I'm
to
watching the
be...
stream, but we won't know for a couple seconds probably.
Oh, I can probably... Yeah, it is showing up. Okay,
Okay.
I'm putting it right on top of your... Because that's the only place I can put it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this is kind of what we're talking about.
Oh
So
yeah, that
this
chart.
is that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if this is accurate, but I when I came across this, I thought this is so helpful. Now again, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
If
I
it
no,
is
I
accurate.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, yeah, that chart's pretty helpful as like a general guide. Yeah.
And they have like these where it's like not the full color here. It's kind of like translucent a bit. It's like that's kind of like the overtones or ringing resonances that would be there. And
I think
looking at
harmonics. Yeah,
harmonics, that's
eventually
right.
probably.
Term,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I look at like piano, I mean, even in my expectation of what the piano would be, I mean, of course it depends which note you play on the piano, but to see that amount of difference that it goes all the way into like what 9K, 10K,
Yeah.
that's crazy to me, And I mean, again, those descriptions that like if it's elevated at 3 to 5K hertz or wherever that ends up being for like electric guitars, that's gonna suck. But for pianos, and you can then look at where the range is,
Right.
And get a sense of what's gonna be better there. But I think a lot of that, I mean, the preference there as well comes down to like the way you want that to sound. I
Right.
do not like an elevated upper or lower treble or whatever that is, 3 to 5K hertz for electric guitars, specifically for that reason. It just sounds shrill to me, sounds aggressive. But at the same time, I love that for pianos. I love that for
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And we've had this conversation a couple times, and it makes it difficult to say is it forward or not. So like other people were saying in the chat here a little bit earlier,
should probably pay more attention to the chat.
Everything has to, yeah. Now there isn't that much going on, but somebody was saying it's very important that you compare everything relatively to at least some other headphone or whatever, and that's exactly the problem. And there's actually a name for this whole phenomenon, which you probably have already heard of by now. It's called the circle of confusion.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what it is. I mean, the engineer, if you think about it, the audio engineer mixing and mastering the music heard something out of some monitor system that you have no idea what the frequency response was in the room, and now you're playing it back on headphones that have some other frequency response that's not flat, because there's no such thing as a perfectly flat headphone. I mean,
Yeah.
and then everyone has their own definition of what the flat headphone would sound like or what they want the music to sound like. So if you combine all these things together, and then you add in things like every microphone has a frequency response, and most recordings are EQ'd somewhere. Sorry, non-EQ people, but mixing engineers EQ all kinds of things all over the place before the final mix. Like there's no way. And I think one of the goals of what Sean Olive's trying to do actually with his Harman response is, I think he's kind of working backwards. He's trying to figure out what already recorded music. And obviously the choices that he picks for that test definitely probably have some kind of major influence on the response as well. On top of this problem, he's working backwards. He's got already recorded music and he's trying to come up with what people prefer that to sound like. But the real goal in the end is to be like, okay, can we have a set target for studios so that people can have a set target for headphones and speakers? Because if we don't have that, then there's no way to know what people expect it to sound like. But anyway, yeah. Then on top of that, there's preference, so that makes it really difficult.
Yeah,
it's like almost impossible.
Speaking of Sean Olive, I want to get into some of the. I mean, if this isn't technical enough,
oh no.
There was the one claim, and you know what's coming, but there was the one claim that he made talking about how detail is all frequency response.
Yeah.
And I want to walk back my initial sort of apprehensiveness about that, because based on, the conversation I've had with you about that, I tend to now kind of agree that it is there. I mean, no smoothing whatsoever. Like, it measures what's there, but the reality is we wouldn't be able to point at that and know, we wouldn't be able to figure it out or compare what the detail would be across headphones, like an LCD4 versus a, even like a, CMF Verite or Focaliga or whatever. Like, we wouldn't be able to look at the frequency response and go, okay, this one has more detail, even though the frequency response probably captures that.
Right. I mean, there's probably, so the reason why I can't say that he's wrong or right is because we don't know what to look for. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's possible that there is some way of viewing the frequency response that can give us a hint as to whatever detail is. But yeah, we just don't know what that is yet. But at the same time, like the way I described it to him, because we were talking about, hey, what if you took your 7506 and you cued it to the same exact curve and then did the same thing with an LCD4, and if you record those two on a head and torso simulator with really good mics and you play them back, they're not going to sound the same. I mean, there's
Yeah.
clearly some extra grittiness going on with the
Yeah. Yeah.
Sony if you did that. That's what I told him. Like, can you please find out why this is and what we need to look for in metrics, because this has been a constant problem. So
What
no,
did he say?
okay. You know what? Someone in the okay. So someone in the comment just said impulse response and distortion. So first of all, total harmonic distortion has very little influence on detail. Total harmonic distortion is actually very difficult to pick up, and actually, I believe there's even a YouTube video that plays the same sound looping over and over and increases the harmonic distortion. And you're supposed to look away from the video, and then when you start to hear it, look back at the video. When I did that, it was like over 10%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so harmonic distortion really doesn't have anything to do with the grain that we hear, as far as I can tell. Impulse response is something that when I talked to Odyssey about this, they said it was very quote unquote difficult to measure. I don't know if that means that they know how to measure it, or and they don't want to tell me because it's like a trade secret. But they did say it has something to do with the weight of the moving mass, which makes
Yeah.
sense
There,
because that's
yeah.
Utopia is probably the lightest moving mass dynamic headphone, which is why it sounds so detailed like it does. So, anyway, but yeah, I don't think the problem with using impulse response like that as impulse response is generally just another way to view the frequency response. It's the frequency response in the time domain.
So
So I don't think
that's
that's it either.
I was gonna bring that up as well. I mean, that's kind of uh, there was a bit of fun about that a while ago, about
A lot.
CSDs and the value of that. I didn't mean for that to kind of blow up as much as it did on Reddit and everything,
Yeah, yeah,
but
CSDs are very interesting.
it
Yeah, no,
is.
no,
And
I used to think the same thing until, I had a lot
yeah,
of conversations with Oratory and Mad Economist of Cascadia Audio. Yeah, it's just, yeah, that rabbit hole goes really deep with all the,
but
yeah,
it would be fun to do more research on that because I feel like it. I
yeah,
mean,
right,
from what I read on, I mean, I reading the AES stuff that was provided, the Audio Engineering Society publication that a lot of that stuff was referencing. Like
yep,
it makes sense. I mean, the whole minimum phase device thing, where basically there's no new information given by the CSD because that is what proportional with the frequency response. The time domain doesn't give any. There's no new information because it's
right.
in minimum phase devices. At least that's sort of how I understand it. But I couldn't find in anywhere in there that would indicate that wouldn't also take into account base characteristics, like not base frequency response, but like bases in like base rate characteristics of certain materials. So or of certain, you
Yeah,
know, that type of stuff. Meaning it, like at least from what I read, it seemed like it would still be possible for time domain information to mean something, but not that it would be somehow disproportionate with the frequency response. So when you, and then again, I look at the HD820 for something like this, where when you
yeah.
raise the gap there, suddenly it just sounds like you actually can hear the glass, as somebody said in Discord. Like it doesn't
Oh, that's
sound good at
funny.
all,
Yeah,
and it just so I'm just that's something where yeah I'm on the same page now as I think what a lot of people were saying, the oratories and the mad economists, where for minimum phase devices there's no new information given, but from reading that stuff I couldn't find anywhere that would indicate that there was nothing there that the base characteristics wouldn't then also impact, like they wouldn't be somehow independent from the frequency response, but that didn't mean that they were not important somehow. um,
yeah. I think that the problem is correlation. Like people are just like, like myself. At one point, I was like, "Oh yeah, I see a ringing ridge in this CSD. That's green." Like you can't do that. Like
no, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not scientific, and
Especially
until somebody
planers,
can
like they
prove that, Right.
they're
Yeah.
all ridiculous there. It's
Yeah, it's very weird. There's at least some kind of ortho wall on a lot of planers when you measure them on a CSD, but I certainly have never been able to hear anything that sounded like that. I don't know if that has something to do with the way the timbre of the driver sounds or not. Either, again, correlation. We don't know.
yeah,
So it's kind of a mystery. Sean Olive said, and what's great about talking to Dr. Olive is that he's a researcher, so he's not like the audio community where it's like, no, that's
yeah,
wrong. He's like, what do you think might be causing this? And like, let's investigate it. And when I talked to him about it, he said maybe it's some kind of nonlinear distortion. So that's maybe some other metric we don't have yet, which
hmm
is also interesting that we've never looked at. So anyway, that's getting really nerdy, and we've alienated like half the audience already. But actually, the audience grew in the last couple
There we
minutes.
go.
Surprising.
See, we're elevating. You know.
I think somebody just posted on Reddit too. I got some
Oh,
notifications, so
okay.
maybe that's why. But
Um,
anyway,
so
um,
just getting back to
yeah,
the detail question, I
yeah.
want to ask what Sean Olive's response was to your question about the two headphones comparing to one another and just EQing one to perfectly match. I mean, whether or not it would. Did he say that it was possible, or was he?
Well, no, he said that at least in the listening test that he did, people could not tell the difference among a bunch of headphones EQ'd, and that seems. I mean, a
Yeah.
trained listener should be able to pick that up, which is kind of weird. But yeah, like I said, other than that, his other response was after I told him like, "Hey, go and record a 7506 and an LCD4 or a 009 or whatever, all EQ'd to Harman response, and listen back to that on a very high resolution headphone. Listen back to it on the 009 with no EQ, whatever, something that's detailed, quote unquote, because it's subjective so far, and tell me that there's no difference there because I don't think so."
Yeah. When looking at some of Tyle's old um, process,
Yeah.
he seemed to value square wave response a
Yeah,
lot for
somebody
that.
brought that up, I think, in the chat. I was going to comment on that when we were ready, but yeah, he did value square wave, which I thought was pretty interesting.
It's funny. I've been I was chatting with somebody. This was like a couple months ago. I was chatting with somebody from Gross, and I asked him. I just did via email correspondence. And I asked him specifically, what about trying to measure square wave response, because that's what Tile used to do, and the response that I got was, well, I don't know why you would want to do that.
Yeah,
So I don't know
yeah.
if it's
Yeah, I thought that
how
was kind
valuable
of
it is.
peculiar too. People like to point at that, but if you think about it, what's a square wave? I mean, it's like an impulse
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
flat and then another impulse going like so you're
yeah.
I think you're mostly still looking at the impulse response, but now you're giving it in a square wave form. At
Well,
least
but
I could be totally off, but that's
I
what
th-
I'm pretty sure it ended up being.
I thought the point of the square wave response was to show how well defined the corners could be, essentially, for the wave.
Well, right, but if you think about it, that's the time domain representation
Yeah,
again
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
of what that would be and the frequency. So you're looking at the
yeah,
frequency response again.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. As someone said, square wave is just that far. As far as I know, that's what I've been told. So that was kind of bizarre. People like to point at that, but
yeah.
people like to point at Tile as some all-knowing oracle, and in reality, I don't think any of the reviewers are infallible.
No,
None of
no.
us know everything because that's what makes the hobby so interesting to me. That's another point I want to put out there more often is audio doesn't seem to be a solved problem in terms of like, oh yeah, we can
Certain.
just
Yeah,
like photography. I think, I mean, not that there can't be more improvements, but I have some really big photo buffs where I work, and they just in seconds they'll just pull up a site after site and be like, yep, here's the grain, here's this, and I'm just like, wow, yeah, I wish
yeah,
we had all this for headphones because it doesn't seem like we have all that data. The data is clearly there somewhere in the recording of a headphone. If you recorded a headphone, you can hear this stuff. Like, I thought it was interesting if you're listening with a very detailed headphone, like if you listen to Olive's Gadget's demo of the 58X and the 600, you can actually hear that the treble is grainier in the 58X. But you have to be using a headphone. I don't like sound demos. That's another topic.
yep.
But you can definitely hear it if you have a headphone that outresolves both of those headphones. So,
Your reference point needs to be better than whatever it
yeah,
is that
pretty
you're.
much. And
But
I
that's
mean,
that's my concern with
that's the
the
problem with
sound
sound
demos,
demos.
right?
Exactly.
And plus, most people who are looking for this stuff are also. I mean, it's going back to what we were saying about people who are potentially wanting to buy something.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to buy it, you're less likely to have something that's better.
Yeah,
You're
I
less like,
you know. People
So
wearing Razer Krakens listening
listen
to
to
the
Sundara demos.
HD800S,
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah. That's what I
you
worry
have no
about.
idea.
Even
Yeah,
if in the best
yeah,
cases, like with the most accurate cases, it's still I worry that it's misleading because people won't understand the way that you're supposed to take it, the way that you're supposed to understand it.
yeah. I mean, every time I've brought this up, even showing the frequency response is more
Yeah,
helpful than a sound demo pretty
yeah,
much every time. But you have to be really, really careful with frequency response too. Another thing I found out recently is that it doesn't even matter if you're using. I think we already talked about this in a DM once. Was if you're using a Gross and it's like a really high end IEC compliant, totally standardized measurement system, and then you use a B&K, the frequency response
yeah,
still is not the same. It's
yeah,
really funny because we like to harp on the mini DSP ears. I mean, and for good reason. And
yeah,
Oratory
yeah,
has a really nice write up on that. But even in the very high end rigs, we still don't seem to have solved the problem of everything measuring the same frequency response.
yeah,
Even that
yeah.
still doesn't work. So it's that's why I always said in the end, you got to still listen to the headphone. And one of Sean Olive's, I think his targets is to people are unreliable, and he's right. We're very unreliable. Subjective impressions are always unreliable, so we should try to use data, but we haven't characterized sound with that data, at least as far as I can tell yet. That's just my opinion, but
I think it's probably more difficult with headphones than even speakers. Like, I think
definitely
speakers is like
headphones are a
at least
very
you can.
complicated problem. Yeah.
Yeah. um, I wanted to. Okay, so I have a few other things here that going down my list here. Things I want to ask you. Um, yeah. So I know I have a sense of what you consider neutral. Sort of. I think you consider.
I'm supposed to make a video on that. I just never really did. I just try to
Well,
keep hinting at it
I
every
mean,
review.
the way I understand. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but basically, what with so the LCD one with the reveal uh,
Yeah, that's pretty close
DSP,
actually
Real
now.
Plus
Yeah,
DSP.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, would you consider that neutral for uh, just to back up? I saw recently on Reddit there was a post about somebody was saying how they want their whatever headphone. They don't understand why manufacturers don't tune all their headphones to be flat. Obviously, meaning like neutral, right? Not flat,
Right.
but is your version of neutral something that you would then make use of or apply to for all genres of music that you listen to, or
That's a
is
that's a
there
really good
value
question.
for you
Yeah.
for some sort of coloration there for certain types of music?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my EQs and my sound preference is very conservative, and that's on purpose. So people who like diffuse fields, I feel like most music is probably going to sound terrible. But if you go out looking for a very, very carefully recorded, um, and recorded content that's supposed to be played back like that and has been done in a very specific way, it could sound awesome. So that's the problem. And yeah, someone just said no mics are really flat either.
Yeah,
That's the what I'm talking about. The circle of confusion actually makes it such that my EQs will never work for everybody. That's why I always tell people it's just a starting point, and you should play with the filters, and then you will learn what frequencies sound like, and that'll help you EQ things for yourself and learn more. I don't like the idea of slapping EQ profiles on things and be like done, because that's it's funny because Reddit thinks a lot like that, and I understand
yeah,
that
yeah,
that's valuable. Like, hey, we've shown the measurements, it's got to be right, but you should always use your ear in the end. But anyway, okay, I got way off track. What was the? Oh yeah, was my EQ
yeah,
profile applicable? So the reason why it's conservative, I said at the beginning, is because I try to make it so that neither the upper mids of metal, and upper mids I mean 3.5K ear resonance, is neither the upper mids of metal on fairly well recorded metal, which is hard to find by the way. So some of the stuff listening back with my profile might still sound harsh, but on some decent recordings that I have, it shouldn't sound harsh. And at the same time, the treble on a lot of electronic music also doesn't sound too bright. And when both of those things are satisfied, and of course I like a little shelf, like 2 or 3 dB of a
yeah.
shelf above neutral, when all of that is satisfied, then I'm satisfied, and that's a very conservative approach. Because, like I said, there's a lot of music. Like if you listen to my EQ on jazz, oh man, yeah, it can be really dark. That's
It's
exactly the
like, yeah.
problem.
Well, I made the mistake of I mean that I as you know, I like serious audiophile music, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Jazz, classical, acoustic music, you know, stuff with instruments. And weirdly, if I look at the tuning of the Verite, which is my, you know, go-to headphone. It's not really, you know, ideal for that because it dramatically cuts 3 kHz, or around
Oh,
that
does it?
range.
I thought when I looked at the graph, it was more like a 4.5K peak or
Could
something
be,
like that
could be,
going
yeah,
on.
but
Yeah, maybe
well,
that's
there's
why.
yeah, it goes down
Relative.
in the, yeah, and
Yeah.
then it goes out, yeah. So, you know, for some, actually some of the jazz recordings, it actually sounds just fine. But then there are some where they're already quite warm, and it's like doubling
Right.
down on warmth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's why, like, I my go to for that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't have one here, but like it's those Hi-Fi Man planars because they're, you know, they actually they elevate there a little bit more, some to the point of a little bit. Well, I found the Sandara a little bit shouty, but if
Yeah, that oh, I'm gonna be started on that. That really confuses me because every time I've heard a Sandara at Can Jam, it's been shouty, and
yeah,
then I reviewed one at home, and somebody else sent me theirs, which is at least a year old, and neither of them were shouty. I don't. I
it could be with
Unit
unit
variation is a
variation. Yeah,
whole nother problem, or actually
yeah.
stealth revision is more likely in that case. But
They did do stealth revisions apparently for a whole bunch of them.
yeah,
So uh, for the other ones that I've seen, to their benefit, like
yeah,
with
it seems
the,
like it.
yeah, but you know that's a good thing. I mean, now at least with those yokes, the arms won't break off anymore. They
Yeah,
replaced the, or they
that's
reinforced it.
yeah,
So
that's another problem with hi-fi men products. But anyway, but
yeah,
yeah, no, that I don't think one. So my sound is very conservative, and it's definitely going to be warm. And for people who are listening, like you said, I don't know how I came up with that stupid term, serious audiophile music. But if you're listening to really well recorded stuff, like I actually have some of it on my test playlist too.
yeah,
Like I have, I think what's his name? What's his name? Tiles, who I'm thinking of here. He had a bunch of selections from I think it's Medeski, Martin, and Wood, and
yeah,
I've
yeah.
added a couple of those to my test playlist, and they're very, very well recorded. And obviously, they sound quite a bit on the warm side, and actually, the bass is very overpowering if you bump the bump a
Yep.
shelf. So it's I can't please everybody, but nobody can. So it's
I
the best thing I can do
yeah.
is just be like, here's what I do for a target. This may not work at all for your music or what you prefer to hear. So,
I'm
all
always
this consistent.
amazed whenever I go to meet up with people who, like meets, or well, I've only been to a few meets, but just meeting people in general who are into headphones, into the hobby, and they have me try out their whatever headphone it is. And I'm always amazed at the music that people listen to because I mean, like I'm a bit of a music snob. Like
Yeah.
I'll try not to, you know, betray that too much when I'm reviewing headphones. But like, I mean, the cat's out of the bag a little bit. Like I actively think that people listen to, like, they'll buy $3,000 headphones to listen to like Battery or Immortal or like
Right. That's funny, but true.
and then there's two things I know. So that's one of them, and you know it's music that's deliberately recorded so that it sounds bad, right? That's the point
Yeah,
of the
right.
music, and
Yep.
then to try and reproduce that as well as possible.
That's
It
quite
just
I know
seems weird. It's
it's
like
quite funny, yeah.
buying a Porsche and driving it as fast as you can into a wall and then saying you didn't like the experience. It's
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
that's one of the reasons also why I don't own one of the like mega flagships myself is because because the stuff I listen to is probably too limiting
Yeah.
for what those headphones can do. The first time I heard things like Utopia and Susfar, I was like, dude, this thing sounds more held back by the recording quality than like itself.
At a
It's
certain point, yeah,
it's
yeah.
really kind of gets to that point. So yeah, that is a good point. For me, I don't mind that. I want to hear whatever flaws are there. I guess
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of fun. But some people that might be really distracting, and actually they don't want detail. There's another one. There's a preference for not wanting too much detail. Maybe you don't want that.
Well, that's I can't you can't see it, but just out of the frame is sitting the night owl over there. You know, that's
Oh boy.
for those. Actually, that one's not the same tuning, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's a little better, but yeah.
there is that question of like, if we want the perfect and most analytic kind of, like, let's say all the technical performance, or do we want something that we just want to listen to and enjoy?
Right. Yeah.
Those are two, different things that goes from listening to the gear to listening to music, and then switches back and forth. I just wanted to mention as well, though, the other thing that I notice at at events or meeting up with people when they have me try their headphones, everybody's playing the stuff way too loud, because it feels like they're trying to get the most. It's like, oh, I want to hear every last little bit of detail, and you can do that if you, well, maybe not every last little bit, but you get the perception there when you just crank it. I mean, that was something I noticed even just at one of the recent ones I went to. I was like, I can't remember what headphone it was I was trying. It was some, ridiculous flagship, and I was there to check out somebody's DAP, and of course he had the music on it, and I remember it.
Yeah.
He just put it on my head. I was like, oh God, no, I can't.
Yeah,
it's just
I know,
way
I know.
too loud.
I think more often than not, I've put on a headphone at you're gonna really be careful with Can Jam, because oh my God, some of the things you put on there. Yeah, the other problem was, I think there was I was with Max Settings most of last year at the show, and we were sitting at a booth, and I think somebody switched out, I forget what it was. I think it was like a Shangri-La or something, and this was on a really, really powerful amp. I can't remember which one it was. Then they plugged in an HE1000 SC, and nobody changed the volume knob. I think he practically threw the headphones across the room when he played something, because nobody changed the volume. Like, it's really bad. Part of it is that, and part of it is just like, oh yeah, listen to this, and they're like blisteringly high volume. Yeah, you got to be careful. It's pretty funny. I think one of the reasons why they do that at meets, or at least the meets that I've been to, is because, well, they're trying to hear everything over everybody else. That's one of the problems. It's not a very quiet environment. But yeah, the other one is, they're trying to. It also, music sounds better loud sometimes for a lot of people. It's very complicated. In fact, even your perception of frequency response changes with listening volume. That's a whole another topic we could cover.
Why you gotta match amps whenever you're, if you're evaluating amps, you gotta volume match.
Yeah. That too. Actually, what's kind of nice is on the something I never had before, because I always used like a ship Magnific forever. And when I went to the 789, I was like, oh wow, I can plug in more than one headphone at once for like the first time ever. So things that are similar sensitivity, I can just plug into SE 1/4 inch, 1/0, and I'm like, wow. It seems like it doesn't change the sound when I do that, but of course that
about, like,
immediately invalidates. Yeah, I'm not sure what that does to the amp, but everyone's probably about to unsubscribe from me saying that I plugged in more than one headphone into an amp and made a real review. But anyway,
actually, I'm very thankful for, just using like SPL matching, like in Rhythmic Equalization Wizard.
Oh,
just being able to use the, like, sine wave generators, and then so you can match volume close enough. I mean, it's not perfect, but like sometimes it'll be like 84.1 and then 83.9, like never quite getting it perfect,
right,
but close enough. I got a couple more questions here for you.
Yep.
I know this is supposed to be Q&A. We've been going for like an hour, so.
That's fine. I'm not wearing an Odyssey. Well, a heavy one. But
it's okay. We're still representing. We're still,
That's funny.
And I weirdly, I did actually like it. I feel like sometimes the things I say aren't necessarily even like, it comes out one way in like the written content, and then maybe another way, and I say one thing and it's like, oh, this person immediately doesn't like it. Like, I said that the stage sucks and the dynamics suck, and it's like, that's true, but there are still good things.
True.
Yeah. So I did like it, and I do think it's good. I just like the Sindara better.
Yep.
So what do you think this is just a generic question, but if you think like this year to like 5 years down the road, I know exactly where this question is going to lead, but like, do you think, so like we've talked about this in the past, but basically that idea of, you put together a driver, planar magnetic driver, whatever it is, and it's a very capable driver. Do we go the route of the LCD1 with DSP, do all the fine tuning and stuff like that? Is that something that actually gets pick up from other brands, other manufacturers, or are they just Is everybody else just too worried about potentially degrading the perception of their brand because of that? I mean, that weird kind of idea of like, well, we couldn't really get it the way we wanted it to be, so here's a profile that you can use to make it sound like the way we wanted it to. I mean, even though that's not totally what's going on, and they've managed to frame it in a certain way that makes sense,
Right.
that there's a risk that like, it feels like maybe that's just too difficult a pill to swallow for everybody else.
Yeah, I've seen. So this is already happening a little more widespread than the average consumer probably realizes because you get things like Bose, where
Right.
actually, as soon as you turn on the Bluetooth, it's not just Bluetooth, it's a whole EQ and
Yeah.
DSP that turns on. And you can verify that pretty easily because if you plug in the headphone passive, everything's shut off. It doesn't sound anything similar to whatever target they have. So I think in the end, you know, if you don't, it's probably better if you don't tell people that about that, and that they just judge it as, oh, this sounds really good, and it'd be really funny to see the reaction of a really hardcore audiophile and be like, by the way, that's like a ton of EQ running on that thing right there. I always thought about like, could people really tell
Well,
if
see, I'd be
we
more
did
worried
that?
about the audiophiles like really not liking that idea because
Yeah, I know. It's I think it's interesting. I mean, EQ is definitely not
yeah,
infallible. It does introduce some issues, especially when you use it over the top. Like if you I people think I'm EQ crazy. I am, but if there's a headphone that needs like 4 or 5 dB, that's starting to get to the point where it's like, something's probably not right about the frequency response. That's a little bit far.
yeah.
So
But so
anyway,
they wouldn't necessarily go, just let's imagine a driver that nobody bothers to tune at all and they're only implementing it.
oh
So like
yeah,
they
no.
don't care about the pads. They're just doing everything. That's not going to happen, right?
I've had people ask me that multiple times, and I'm like, that I don't know why people think that. Oh yeah, just put a piece of paper in something and EQ it. Like no, it does. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. I mean, Odyssey always tells me that they're trying to tune it as close as possible so that they'd have to use as little EQ as possible. But oh man, they've got some weird products like the iSign and the LCD i4 that are way off, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
that might just be because of the inherent problems with what they tried to do with the
Yeah.
enclosure and the size of the driver and whatever, which
That
is
one,
an odd
that's
thing.
super interesting to me though too, because I mean planar tech in IEMs is not really a successful thing yet,
No.
because it feels like, well, it feels like again right at that, like let's say upper mid range around 3K hertz, when you close it off, it's like that suddenly just elevates like crazy, or you like it just is not
Yeah,
right there.
that's
And
natural, yeah.
when
I
you
mean,
open it up,
put your hands over,
yeah,
the LCD
yeah,
one. I mean, that's exactly what happens.
yeah. So, and with over ears, you can put a whole bunch of damping there, or you can figure out some way to deal with that. But with such a small, physical footprint, I mean, it's how do you do that? And then when you look at the Odyssey stuff for like the i3 and the LCD i4, they're, well, at least with the i3, it's like it's a cave there. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like the opposite problem.
Yeah, I've heard the i3 even running the cipher correction. I was like, this, what? There's still no mids.
It still
even
is gone. So
even for me,
yeah, it's got
it's
to be like
weird.
find a nice little middle ground there.
Because one of the things I wanted to do was to get like the whole iSign lineup in the i3 and i4 in here, just to see what they've done with the EQ profile on those, because it is very extreme already, and it probably needs
Yeah,
a lot more on
yeah,
top of that.
yeah.
Like I
But
have to
that's a good
say,
example.
no, yeah, no, that's a good example of like, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure if why they greenlit that project, 'cause that's a really odd product, but yeah, I don't know. I think the i4, aside from the really whacked out frequency response with no EQ, especially with no EQ, the few times I've heard it, it's been really detailed, though. I don't know if that's true or not. I think you reviewed it before, but it has the same film as the LCD4, so I'm not too surprised. But I don't know. I guess that's what they were doing. Technical performance over everything. That was actually the goal. Then just EQ it later, which is pretty odd. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm
I don't
okay
think we'll
with
see
it.
anything to that degree normally. No,
Yeah,
I don't
but
think. Yeah.
I think it would be cool. I mean, I'd be fine with that as long as it's like you could imagine, something where it's actually in the physical headphone, and then you just push a button and it turns it on, kind of like the Bose system, where you don't need
Mm.
to run the risk of people not necessarily enabling it. And
Yeah, it's
then
one of the things that annoys me about the Mobius is you can't run it passively. Like I think that
right.
we probably should be given the option. We need a bill in Congress for allow people to use their headphones passively. Don't make it active only now. I'm just kidding, but that would be nice if that was a standard thing,
Yeah,
just in
yeah,
case.
yeah. Anyways, okay, I got one more question for you that I've written
Yeah.
down. We got to get to the bottom of this.
Oh no.
Kind of. Okay, so I think there are very good reasons to. I'm just gonna give a statement here, and then you can react how you want to react. But I
Okay.
think there are very good reasons to both shoot and export in 24 frames a second.
Oh no, here it comes.
That's the statement. I don't, by the way. I'm all about 30. That's the irony, is that
Oh
like
really?
I'll go
Oh,
to
that's funny.
bat, but I do
Okay.
everything at 30. Yeah, yeah. But I
No, the
just
only
yeah.
reason, yeah. So the only reason why we got into some random kerfluffle on Twitter there was because, like, see, I didn't even notice this for the longest time. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't just make videos here and there, but I watch a lot. And every time there's a 24 FPS video on a 60 hertz screen, I just can't unsee it anymore because and this was funny because I didn't even notice it until I got a TV not that long ago. I actually didn't even have a TV at all, like for years and years for some reason, because I always watched on my computer. But when I got one, I noticed that when the apps built into it would play like TV shows, probably movies, better example, or film TV shows. Yeah, that would be
Mm-hmm.
24 also. Versus if I plug in a streaming box, that would look kind of choppy, and I was like, "What is going on here?" And that's what I realized the frame rate was not matched. All the streaming boxes deliver the content over 60 frames a second. I mean, you do that, it's 2 frames and then 3 frames and then two refreshes for 1 frame, then 3 refreshes for another frame. I mean, you do that, it looks pretty weird to me. So that was all it was.
But
so
like
so if people can watch content more often at 24 hertz refresh or some multiple of it, that's fine. But I think that for the majority of people, it's going to look a little bit better if you use some multiple of or some 30 or 60 pretty much. So,
but
but that's just my opinion. So,
does that mean that you'd want, like, say you go to the movie theater and the movie that you watch, you'd want it to be shot at what 30?
no, definitely not. That yes, that definitely not. That's the thing. Like I think that I do like the cinematic look
Yeah.
of 24 hertz, but I think that it should be played at 24 hertz. It shouldn't
Oh,
be.
the refresh rate of the display should
Yeah,
be
that's what I
the
mean. The
I get
refresh
what
rate of
you
the
mean.
display should be matched or at least some integer multiple. Like we're about to enter, I think this year. This is totally off the topic because I think
That's okay.
we're about to go to 120 hertz smartphones are coming out now, and
Yeah, this one is this is
that's going to
120
be
hertz right
cool.
here.
Yeah,
This
and
one.
that's going to be interesting because unless my math completely right or wrong or whatever, but I think that is a multiple of 24, so that might
Well,
actually look okay.
it would divide more evenly though,
It
because
would divide
if you
evenly, yeah,
if you
yeah,
double that, you get 240, right? So
right, yeah, yeah,
so but
exactly.
yeah, uh, yeah, I'm inclined to agree that 60 was not optimal for the but we've been on 60, like TVs have been even the ones that are
Yeah, I know.
advertise 120 or higher or whatever, it's all still
Yeah.
60 natively, right? So uh, that to me seemed like an odd choice given that everything was always in 24.
Well, the
Um,
reason why it's 60 is because going way back. Actually, I think what's the channel? Technology Connections. If you want to go down a rabbit hole of like the history of technology, that's a really
yeah.
good channel because he explains how TV worked, analog TV worked, and the
Hmm.
reason why it's 60, I believe, is because you're and the reason why it's 50 over in Europe is the same reason as the AC hertz.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why that
Yeah.
happened, and that's also why we had interlacing to simulate 60, but the real
Yeah.
signal
Yeah.
was like 29.97 or whatever it is. Anywho, but yeah, no, to answer the simple question of, yeah, I don't think movies should be shot at 30. No
Okay.
way, that looked real strange. In fact, it's
Yeah.
funny, I was watching Twilight Zone and I forgot that some of the episodes or actually I just didn't even know that some of them were shot on tape as an experiment, and I was watching. I was like, "Is something wrong with Netflix? Like, I'm hitting my phone. Like, what's going on with this?"
Yeah.
And then when they switch back to the film episodes, I'm like, "Oh, that's much better." So I definitely don't want movies to be at 30, but I just want 24 to be played back properly.
I mean, yeah, but the fact
That's
that
what
you
it is.
notice this kind of stuff, I mean, I feel like I know it's off topic, but like
Yeah.
that's it's a similar kind of thing where it's like this kind of gets us back to. I mean, maybe we should probably end here. We've been an hour and
Yeah.
a half, but gets us back to what we were talking
It's
about at
not
the
bad.
beginning, where people's experience. I mean, that's basically it all comes down to the experience that we're looking for, right? And not
Yeah.
everybody is paying attention as scrutinous of a manner. I'm just going to say that word. It's yeah.
I like that one.
Not everybody is approaching the evaluation with as much scrutiny, and 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 in many ways, like people say, okay, there's no such thing as like special ears or whatever, but like people are specifically like if you're super, let's call it detail oriented about that kind of stuff, whether about experience in general, right, whether it's auditory experience or visual experience, you're probably more likely to notice certain things that other people will notice, but maybe the majority won't. And if all of the stuff, all the content is catered to what the majority is going to experience, then we're missing a important piece. So that's why I'm going to end this by saying I'm hopeful that you come back in March, or looking forward to that, and or also the, let's say, the weekend Q&A, the
Yeah,
day long Q&A. So
this is the
that you're
kind
gonna
of
do.
stuff I enjoy. So as long as I can keep doing these kind of things,
Yeah,
yeah, it's good stuff to talk about. But no, that's very true. I've always been that kind of person. I'm sure you are too, of course, if you're a reviewer.
yeah, yeah,
Like it doesn't even matter what it is. It's just at this point it's gotten really bad for me. It's like
yeah.
I'll go look up a product. Doesn't matter what. I think I spent. My God, I think I spent like a week or two looking at humidifiers before I decided which one I wanted to buy. Like it just doesn't even matter what it is.
I
Just the
yeah.
the, the level of detail orientedness of us is just it's really funny.
You can just as easily go down the rabbit hole on like Amazon or whatever else for the most
Yeah,
inane, pointless thing
right.
to make sure that you're getting the best one. But
But
yeah,
yeah, that's the kind of people you want doing reviews
yeah,
because that way they'll cover the bases that you might not have even noticed exist to
yeah,
begin with. So
yeah,
yeah, I agree.
yeah. Last question for you. Right now, what are the headphones that you personally own?
Oh, actually, everything that I was borrowing is now back with the manufacturer. Despite popular belief, the LCD one was never mine, and I did send it back. I actually ordered one at one point, and I actually canceled the order after I heard Sundar. I was like, oh boy, this is this is now going to be a difficult decision.
Yeah,
So I don't own any of that stuff. I do own this, the
yeah, yeah,
K371, which actually I meant to say you really should review this thing. I want to see what you think
yeah.
about this
It's
because this is like the ultimate Harman headphone right now.
it's on my
If you want to
radar for
see,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
that should be it. But yeah, and other stuff, which some of which you can see. I think there's a 660S up. Oh wow, I don't even know where my finger's going right now.
yeah.
660S is up there. 650 is somewhere. Wow, I really can't even point properly. But anyway, it's
I think
650 and 660S are up there, and the LCD too. I still have my ZMF Atticus, but
that's the purple one, right?
yeah, the purple one exactly,
So
and
so
lots of
you're
other
gonna
stuff.
laugh. So you also have the HD 800, right?
Oh yeah, that
So
that does that
it's
hasn't come out very much for a long time. I might sell it actually. We'll
yeah.
see. Cause
Um,
like, yeah. But anyway,
it's not one you normally use. You're gonna laugh
yeah,
when
no.
I got an upcoming ZMF headphone to review. Not mine. I wish it were mine, but
Yeah, right.
somebody's. Actually, I think he's in the chat right now. Is I believe at least he's going to be lending me one for review, and it's also purple.
Oh, I know who it is then.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I want to hear one of those too. Actually,
Yeah.
somebody else independently offered to send a Verite C to me, so I'm hoping that happens soon. They haven't shipped it yet, but I'm like, dude, I know how hard it is to get the motivation to go pack something up and ship it, especially when it's like that worth that
Yeah.
much money.
Yeah.
So just take your time. I'm trying not to rush them, but I do want to compare, especially because I want to get rid of the Atticus too because it's a little bit on the heavy side, and I actually just use my 371 at work most of the time now. But I want to keep it around to compare to that ZMF as well. See what happens
So
there.
this I'm just showing this here. This looks super weird. This is actually the lobe strap back when I had an LCD2 pre-phaser. uh, and I figured out a way to just replace the headband for the little strap on the ZMF. Just makes such a
Oh, I
world
see
of
it now.
difference.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It took a second. Yeah, but yeah, it makes such a world of difference for ZMFs. Well, I don't know. They're not that uncomfortable to begin with, but
Oh
they are
no.
a little on the heavier side for some of the older ones, especially. These ones, like the I'm shilling ZMF here right now, but like the Verite and the,
It's okay. I
like
do that
big
all the
time,
time.
yeah. Anything with the new magnesium alloy chassis, it's way lighter than the rest of them,
Yeah.
and also with the Verite C, I haven't tried, I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but that one is also, it's like the lightest closed back. It's also like the other ones kind of like stick out on the side a little bit, and that one is not. It's more like this. But anyways, this helps a lot for that, because again, I'm probably the biggest comfort snob I think out of all reviewers. The necklet supreme over here.
Yeah, it was so weird. I was fine for the longest time, and then for some reason the LCD2 closed back just destroyed me. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened with that. I don't know if it's just like the way the weight balance was or what, but like man, my neck was like damaged for like 2 months or something, and finally starting to come back into my own here. I actually put a carbon headband on my LC2 phaser
Yeah.
to lower. I mean, it doesn't do that much. I think I measured it's probably about 30 grams lighter, which is nice, but not crazy. For some reason, my LCD2 ended up being 600 grams. I don't know why. It's not normally supposed to be quite that heavy. Wood
Actually,
variation.
I'm supposed to be getting one to review at some point here, an LCD2. I think a recent one. So that should be
Yeah,
interesting.
one of the newest one. If it's got the suspension headband, then it's
Yeah.
really really new. Yeah, that would be
Yeah, not
that'd
the
be
classic,
great.
but the LCD2
The real one.
phaser. Yeah, yeah. The
I actually had
real
it side by side with the classic. That was
yeah,
surprising. They're not as different as I thought they were, but so you'll
yeah.
still be getting that kind of
Um,
sound. But I think max settings is supposed to be. I think he might be getting an LCD3 phaser not too long ago.
oh yeah, I
Headphones.com,
saw
I think
that.
sent him one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so that should be really cool because that one doesn't get talked about very much either. I
It's sort of
reviewed one.
the redheaded stepchild of the
Yeah,
bunch,
it's really funny. I did two reviews on that. One of them was pre 2016, and it was like grainier than my 650. LOL at variation. And then I did a, then I finally did like a 2018, and it was a good step above the LCD two. But yeah, everyone talks about the LCDX and the two and the
How would
four, but not much
you
with the other ones.
how would you rate the LCD-X in like today's landscape with like the Ananda and the Aria and all those other?
I think it's especially a good value now because it used to be like 1800, I think,
Yeah,
but with now it's like 1199 or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And this is assuming that the variation problems, which were really severe in the LCDX early on, are gone. I'm hoping they are by now, but we can't know for sure. I mean, the quality of that company has improved, but yeah, we'll see. But assuming you get a good one, that's a really, really detailed headphone. It always surprises me, and it's
yeah.
not just because it's slightly brighter, but it's like on the level of the LCD3, I think, in the treble. It's quite good. But it is
Is it
heavy
heavy?
also.
Like yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's also got
yeah,
a bunch
it's
of weight there. Yeah,
if I remember right, when I did the LCDX that somebody sent me, I think it was a 2018 versus the 2 Classic, and when I measured the LCDX, despite the spec on the website, I think it was like 670 or 680 grand. It's a thick one.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird.
For me,
But anyway,
on my list is still the Hyphaman Aria right there for that sub $2,000. I mean, the headphone would be. I mean, have you tried the
right.
headphone?
No, I'm gonna hear that on Can Jam probably for the
Okay.
first time, so that'll be pretty interesting.
I mean, it's too bad you don't get a chance to try it at home. Maybe you will, hopefully, but
I probably will
it's
eventually review it.
eventually, yeah, because it's super open, right? So like, it's you hear the world around you like the same way you would. If
Oh,
you were wearing
really? Oh,
headphones,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had an
Yeah.
open back that was quite that open.
Like
That's
it's
really
like
weird.
the original HE500 level of open. Like it's
Oh,
just,
okay.
yeah.
Wow.
At least that was my experience. Like,
Yeah, I'm always down to see what a new driver tech would be because we don't see that very often. So that's pretty crazy. I've
yeah,
heard
I'd
the
be curious
raw
to.
actually already.
I heard
I
it
don't
too.
know. I don't know if you have. It's.
Yeah,
I mean, the bass is the
I
only
yeah.
part that really disqualifies. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that was my experience as well. I
other
I
than
heard
that, it's
it.
actually
Yeah,
pretty good.
I was impressed by the like stage aspects,
Yeah, I would
but
hope
that's
so.
about it. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was not. It wasn't my favorite of that event where I heard it. It wasn't the favorite that I heard. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Anyway, all right.
yeah. All right, we should probably end it there. We could just keep going down the rabbit hole for
Yeah, I know. That was a pretty
hours
good
about
stream. I was fun.
headphones.
Thanks.
Yeah. Alrighty, man. Talk to you again soon. And
All right.
yeah,
See you
see
guys.
everybody who's watching, and follow Metal571. Follow Metal571. Wait, where is he? He's here.
I'm on. Yeah, right now I mostly live on Twitter at that same handle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be back on YouTube probably in March. Yeah.
All right. I'll see you guys, and thanks for tuning into the live stream. And we'll be doing another one here probably pretty soon, maybe next week, with somebody else who's equally as exciting as Metal571. Actually, I don't know if that's true, but
That'd be great. Yeah, get Wheezy in there. He just commented.
Oh, that's a
yeah,
great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty, man. Thanks. Good talking to you, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
It was great. Thanks for hosting.
Cheers,
See you
guys.
guys.